watching TNA about 2 weeks into their weekly pay-per-view run. A friend of mine who had access to the pay-per-views, I did not, had been watching it, and he was asking me if I'd seen it. Said no. Said he'd start taping it. Had started giving me the tapes. His brother had been taping all of them, so the first time I saw that was all like 3 weeks in a row. And it was pretty good. Wasn't horrible. Was much better than a lot of the other stuff that wasn't WWE that I had seen at the time. A lot of guys I had never seen before. Was enjoyable. There was guys on there that I had seen before. Wasn't the best thing in the world, but wasn't the most horrible either. And saw most of them and enjoyed most of them for the most part. And then, of course, they got on Fox Sports Net. There was a point where they weren't on TV at all. They were doing the monthly pay-per-views. And there seemed to be a buzz about this company because they went through this stretch to 2005, 2006 of just these amazing pay-per-views. And then about the last quarter of 2006, something started to change. The product just didn't seem to be the same anymore. They started making it seem stale. Certain guys that that I think people who have been watching wanted to see get pushed weren't being pushed. And something just didn't seem right at the time. And as time went on, got into 2007, just seemed to compile upon each other. And it just turned into where this company that seemed to be on the right track magically fell off its path. And I think a lot of us have waited for them to get back on the path. Have been dragged through shit waiting for them to get put back on the path. There's been many times I've said to myself, you know what? I give up. I'm done. I don't want to follow this company anymore. Screw it. But it was hard because there's tons of guys. There's far more guys in TNA that I would much rather watch wrestle and that I am fans of, that I am a fan of, than in WWE. I'll freely say that. And so I was willing to wait. I was willing to hope. I was willing to say, you know what? Maybe they'll eventually do something good. And every time I was about to give up, they would go out there and they would put some little carrot in front of me, some little glimmer of hope, and I'd be okay. I'll wait and see if this turns into something. Bring in Hogan. I had my doubts, but I said, you know what? I'll give it a shot. We got Turning Point. We got Final Resolution. 2 pay-per-views I don't even think TNA cares 2 craps about. Which is very evident because they're being released in a 3-pack, which I think comes out this Tuesday after I'm making this video. And not much fanfare. Has probably 3 of the best matches TNA has put on in forever, which is kind of sad because, well, actually, you could argue, yeah, 3. I'd say 3 of the best pay-per-views TNA has put on in a long time. And Lockdown that was tonight had probably a match that was every bit as good as those 2 matches, or those 3 matches. Unfortunately, Samoa Joe is MIA. Christopher Daniels is now with ROH, and Kurt Angle, who is another guy that was in some of those matches, and was in the match from last year that was at the beginning of the year, was in the other match that you would maybe put as the only match to come up to those matches, which was with Jeff Jarrett. Is taking time off, which basically just leaves us with AJ Styles, though I imagine Joe might even show up on this week's Impact. Left from that. For 4 months, we were told, wait till lockdown. Give us a shot, basically wait till lockdown. But they weren't telling us that, but for the most part, they were hyping lockdown, telling us lockdown was going to be this big thing. That was what they were hyping towards. Through 3 pay-per-views in a row, under the bus, didn't give 2 craps about the buy rates. We're more worried about the Monday night show, about moving to Monday nights, which is fine, whatever. Keep in mind that this lockdown, I wouldn't be shocked if it's the second lowest buy rate for a lockdown ever. On top of that, now, there were a lot of people at this show. For a TNA show. There were 3,000 tickets sold today of the morning of the show. I'd say they probably gave out maybe 1,000 tickets, maybe. So there was at least 4,000 people there, and apparently there was a pretty good walk-up for the show as well. So there may have been as many as 5,000, maybe even more people there, for all we know. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe there was only about 4,000. But 4,000, 5,000 people there. That's pretty good for a TNA show. So good for them there. Then we get on with the show. And a lot of people asked me, because I kept saying I would give them the lockdown, is how good did this show have to be? And in all honesty, it didn't have to be a great show. It didn't have to be great. Would help. Did I think it needed to be a great show? Yes, but it didn't have to be a great show. If it was a good show and it made me feel good about where the product was going, I would be happy. I'd be like, you know what? Maybe everything wasn't as good as it could have been, but you know, I'm okay with where the product is going. I feel good about where the product is going. I want to watch Impact. I want to watch the next pay-per-view. Not feeling it. Undercard of this show was booked pretty horribly, in my opinion. The main event, which wound up being the Lethal Lockdown match, was, in my opinion, a way of simply being, Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff taking the spotlight. We literally have had, from the guys that should have had the spotlight, we had one great match on this whole show, and if it wasn't for that match, this would probably be considered a pretty bad pay-per-view, in my opinion. And it was the match that probably no one gave 2 shits about, because they had booked this feud, Kurt Angle and Anderson, so horribly. We got an X Division match, which was pretty good. Well, 2 X Division matches. One of which was was the same TNA insanity, because they threw the machine guns in there, a tag team going for a singles match. Brilliant. We had a really bad knockouts match. X-Pac no-showed. Surprise, surprise. We had a nice brawl to hide the fact that Team 3D and the band, as they stand now, aren't that great, and probably never should have been booked on this pay-per-view, but they went out there and did the best that they could. We had a very crappily booked Eric Young, Kevin Nash match. We had, basically the Pope and AJ basically, thrown out and not even given, any type of feeling any type of importance, even though they continually built this up over, I guess, 2 months, 2-3 months. I don't feel any different about this company than I did a year ago. I don't feel any different about this company after I've seen every crap pay-per-view they do. I just don't care anymore. Which is sad, because there's a good 15 guys on this roster, maybe more, maybe 20, that I actually enjoy watching wrestling, and I would actually like to watch them on a wrestling show, and yet they go out of their way to make me not give a shit. And I know TNA doesn't care. I know TNA really doesn't care. And honestly, probably the last thing I will ever buy from TNA will be what I bought last night, which was the, Genesis, Final Resolution, Turning Point, and Against All Odds 3-pack, which I got from ROH. Didn't even buy it from TNA. ROH was having a sale, so I bought it from them. That'll probably be the last thing, maybe. I might go see, TNA's coming to Houston. I might go see them live just so I can, see some of the guys. But that's pretty much it. And that's the only reason. It's not even to see TNA. It's just so I can see some of the guys that I would like to see live. And that's sucky, to be honest, because I want TNA to succeed, and I don't feel like they are succeeding. I think we got a bunch of old guys getting pushed. We didn't see any new faces. I don't feel any different about this than I have been forever. Kurt Angle is going to be gone for who knows how long, and he's been pretty much the guy carrying them for a couple years now. So I guess you could say the hat's burned. It's raining today, so I'm not actually able to burn the hat, but if TNA would just listen and would say, why was it that we were able to do better buy rates in 05 and 06 when our show was on at 10 o'clock at night than we are now, when our show was at a horrible 1-hour time slot, and yet we were able to do better buy rates than we are now? Is it because the wrestling business is that bad? Is it because we're not giving the fans what they want? Where were all those people who turned in that first live Monday night show that have turned out and are not watching TNA when they could watch Raw? Why is that? Where are those loyal fans that were watching TNA every Thursday night, and you go up against Raw and they would rather watch Raw? If that doesn't tell you something, if that doesn't explain to you something, then maybe you shouldn't be in business, because it's taking them all this time to right now they're finally consistently drawing more than ROH at house shows. Keep in mind that ROH house shows are down, but at least they're finally drawing more than ROH on house shows. And the thing is, you could take a lot of that same talent that TNA has, stick them in ROH, and ROH would draw better on a lot of these house shows. That's sad to think that ROH does, their TV show maybe gets seen by a fraction of even what TNA gets seen by, and relies completely on the internet, and yet can do that. And yet TNA plays this game of, we know that nothing's wrong with the company, that the people who dog the company don't know what they're talking about, this, that, and the other, and people will go, they're still in business. TNA is in business as long as Panda Energy is willing to flip the bill. And the question that TNA fans need to ask themselves is, what happens if Panda Energy magically can't flip the bill for TNA? For whatever reason, maybe even an outside reason that most of you are not even aware of that exists. What happens then? What happens to TNA then? It is frustrating to me, because the company has a lot of promise, and yet it never succeeds. There's lots of things that they could do differently that they don't. and I was willing to give them a chance. And pay-per-view was good. I mean, pay-per-view was very good. And by all means, the pay-per-view was very good. But by no means did it make me want to follow TNA. Did it make me want to turn into Impact? And for that reason, it failed. And maybe that's not fair, but that's the truth. You know, Kurt Angle and Anderson went out there and had an amazing match. No doubt about it. But that's about it. We had maybe the best thing I can say about Lethal Lockdown is it's the best War Games type match that Hogan has ever been in, or been a part of, which isn't saying jack squat about that match. It was probably the worst, second worst Lethal Lockdown match TNA has ever done. The main event, or the world title match, was good, but not great. And that was about it. I mean, there was really nothing else to, nothing else to really get excited about. I mean, the best match on the card was the match that I think everyone felt the least going in for, because they had booked the feud so idiotically. But anyways, I've rambled on enough. So from now on, when TNA puts on their pay-per-views, because I know people will still come on here and look for my reviews, I'm gonna do something else. Maybe I'll review this thing. 26 matches. Maybe the best comp DVD I have ever found, and I mean that, ever found. I would almost say this blows away the Flair DVD, the good Flair DVD, the better of the two Flair DVDs, I should say, the good Flair DVD. But maybe I'll start doing that. Maybe I'll start doing TNA shows from 2006, 2005. Maybe I'll start doing that. I don't know. But yeah, no more TNA pay-per-view reviews. I just don't want to do them anymore. I don't want to have to take time out of my schedule to watch TNA unless truly they do something that truly intrigues me, and I don't see them doing that. So that's it. Does TNA care? Probably not. They probably don't even know. And I would hope more people would do the same, because I'm sure people came on here, talked about, the fact that, I think most people thought this was a good pay-per-view, but again, it was a good pay-per-view because of one match. It wasn't a good pay-per-view because of the overall show, and I think that the fact that is it something that grew, built on the future, I think you would say no, and it doesn't make the company look any better than it did the day before. So, sorry TNA. Later.